Hey, space cadets. We are going to fly out into space and try to win a poker tournament, get the spaceship, and make it back to Earth. That's the whole idea here. This is Triplejack.com. I'm your host, ZenBlender, and today I'm playing as FenderBender. I'm in the list here somewhere, and there I am. So we've got 37 people ready to go. About 30 seconds, the game is going to start. And this is a 1,000 Jack buy-in game. And the winner gets a special rocket ship medal and unlocks the rocket ship bomb, which they can throw at their opponents, which is a lot of fun. So I'm going to try to play a good, smart game of poker, and hopefully I can make it pretty far in this tournament. And I'll give some commentary as I play. And here we go. Hold on to your seats. It's about to get bluffy in here. Okay, so right off the bat, I see a few admins at the table who play a lot of Triplejack, and they are probably not going to let me steal a lot of pots very easily. So I'm going to tread carefully, and I'm going to try to see some cheap flops when I have marginal hands. And if I nail that flop, and I have a pretty good one here, I'm going to try to extract a lot of chips if I can hit a huge hand. I'm actually going to put out a little small bet here. I don't think either of these players have much. And if they call me, I have a chance to hit a straight here. So Attitude has called and then checked the turn. He's probably got a better hand than I do at the moment. But it's possible that he's also on a draw. I might actually have the best hand right here. And I'm just going to check it. And it turns out that he was totally bluffing. So he called the flop there. I'm not sure why. And so that's good to keep in mind. I've got an ace. I've got a good position, and I'm going to raise that most of the time and take down a few chips. And now I've got pocket nines. I'm going to do the same thing. And I do this pretty much in any position with a pair like nines. Okay, so we started with, looks like 8 tables. And there are only 5 seats on each table. So that makes for pretty quick hands. And I probably still have the best hand here. But I certainly don't want to let any cheap diamonds come off on a flop like that. Because then I don't know if I'm behind or if I'm still ahead. It's hard to know. All right, been hitting a few good starting hands here. And I'm going to keep the pressure on. And so maybe USMC here has gotten a little bit tired of me kind of pushing him around. So I'm going to call here and hope that I'm ahead. And I am, so that's good. I just have to dodge a 10. All right, good game, USMC. All right, so I was fortunate there. And I'm not quite sure what he was going for there. If he wanted everybody to fold, he could have bet less than that. Or I mean, I was not going to fold, obviously, but his bet was a little on the risky side from his perspective. All right, so we have kind of a similar hand that just played out with 2 pretty strong starting hands going all in, and once again, the ace king comes out ahead. So ace king is a pretty good hand when your opponent has nothing. All right, so far things are going pretty well for me. And it seems that Pete is playing a little bit tight here, maybe tighter than he should be playing. So I'm going to try to put pressure on him, and I'm not necessarily concerned about there being an ace out there on this flop, and it might scare him. So the fact that he's raised here, I think that he's playing pretty safe. And in a normal game, maybe he would raise if he had an ace, but he's more concerned about losing chips. So I think he may have actually just called, had an ace, and then put in the raise once it hit. So that may not have been the best time for me to represent that I had an ace. But I'll keep that in mind for future clashes between Pete and the FenderBender. The player Tim has just come into the table from another table that has been balanced. So you don't end up with one table with 5 players and another table with just 2 players, anything like that. And we have a 2-pair versus 2-pair hands, and Tim is off the table just as soon as he came onto it. All right, I've got Queen 9, and I'm on the big blind, and I'm going to check my option here. I am feeling like a player like Pete is more likely to slow play some of his hands, but I'm not sure. Okay, so Maple Leaf puts out this big bet when this sort of meaningless 3 comes out on the turn. That's a huge bet. And unless somebody calls her, we don't know what that means. But that's what you might call sort of a polarized range of hands, because it's probably an indicator of either a strong hand or a bluff. It's less likely to be something in between. And now Pete bets out, and I really don't have anything. So if he didn't have anything, well, good bet, buddy. All right, I got 8-3. I'm on the button. I'm going to put on a little pressure. And Pete calls me. And in this circumstance, I'm going to try delaying my continuation bet until the turn. I do have position. And a lot of times if you do that, it can actually convey more strength, because if you raise pre-flop and then you bet out on the flop, it's just so expected that sometimes it's best to check and then to do your continuation bet on the turn, especially if it's a card that you don't think really changes anything. If a king or an ace had come out on the turn, then that's more likely to have helped Pete's hand. So that might not have been as good of a place for me to try to take down that pot. But I like to just keep putting pressure on so that when I get a big hand, players may be frustrated or they may not believe me, and I'm more likely to win a big pot that way. And I've got a pretty bad hand here with 2-pair on the board there, but there was no raise pre-flop, so I'm going to put out a bet here. If Angel has an ace, then that would be a good call for her, but otherwise she can't like anything that's out there. So again, I'm just trying to put on pressure, but not too much. Just enough to kind of get people to say to themselves, I don't really need to fight for this pot. It's just not worth it. I'm going to fold and wait for a better hand. But in this situation, I've got 2 other people in the hand. I I've got the worst position since I have to act first on every street. So this is just not a good spot for me to try to buy this pot. And it turns out that I could have probably easily taken that away since nobody had anything. But that's okay. All right, now I got queens on the button. So this is where I keep putting on pressure, but it looks continuously more and more suspicious as I do this. But it turns out that here I actually have a hand, and I'm going to raise it more than normal. And a lot of times players aren't paying as much attention to the size of bets. So sometimes you can get called with a bigger bet just as frequently as you would with a somewhat smaller bet. So I was happy to take that one down without a flop. And now I've got 5 high and I get re-raised. So this is a good time for me to run away. And I just put in a min raise there. So, and looking at that, I would hit the straight, but pretty sure I would not have made it to the river anyways. So the latest player to have moved in is Lune Argentina, and as far as I know, she's the only player on Triplejack I know of from Argentina. And she's played quite a bit of Triplejack. And I'm going to just bet right out at this. Because that flop either helped Maple Leaf or didn't. It's unlikely to have helped her, but this raise I think is a little uncharacteristic. I think that she actually hit that flop. Maybe had a pocket pair or something that wasn't improved by that flop. But that was a good place to fold, obviously. And now I'm going to raise into Pete, and I'm going to raise a little more than normal. Okay. I want to put pressure on Pete when I've got a hand that I like, a strong hand that I'm willing to go the distance with. Especially since I have him covered 2-1 in chips. So let's say I get all in with the ace-king there, and he calls me with, who knows, let's say pocket tens, and he ends up winning or something like that. Then I'm still very much in the game. And now I've got king 10. And there's a call in front of me. So that's one of the reasons that I didn't raise. I like to put pressure on people that haven't voluntarily put any chips in. In other words, people that have called already. All right, so this is where I'm going to raise. Angel Eyes might be slow playing here. It looks like she's a very passive player, so it's possible that she's got an overpair here. But she lets me see the river here. Aha! Yes, she was slow playing. Okay, so I'm happy with the way that I played that because I think that she would call pretty much any bet that I'd put out there. So my spidey sense was definitely tingling there. And I wonder what she would have done if I had raised pre-flop. So a lot of people, when they are under the gun, in other words, they're just to the left of the big blind and they're first to act, if they have aces, a lot of times they're thinking, I'm going to set a trap. And so they limp in, so they're just calling the big blind, hoping that somebody's going to raise. And when they do raise, then they re-raise. And when I saw that call, I thought that was a little suspicious, so I started to play more conservatively. Even though I hit top pair on that flop. Okay, so seem to have recovered a little bit from that loss, and now I'm back over 2,000 chips, and I've moved to another table. we're down to 6 tables now. And we have Uncle Petey, Caddis, Gorgeous One, and Mackie Boy at the table. And I don't know a lot about these players, so I will just figure it out as I go along. I'll check out the standings here. So I am 5th place in chips right now out of the 40 players that started, and there are 30 players still in. So we've lost a quarter of the players already. And I'm going to play a little safer here just because I haven't quite felt out this table yet. I'm not sure how they're going to play. So even the King 7 here, I'm going to fold that. And so Gorgeous is limping in here, just calling the big blind. Let's see what Mackie does. Looks like Mackie almost, yeah, Mackie pretty much timed out there. And now I have 9-5. I'm on the big blind. And I'll see a free flop. Now I could hit a straight 2 ways. I could hit a 10 or a 6. I'm going to put out a bet here. And it looks like I would have hit a straight. All right, I'm going to fold the 5 high. It's a bad spot. And Uncle Petey is low on chips. Actually, both Petey and Caddis are low on chips, so you have to always have that in the back of your mind that they can go all in at any time with, you know, weak hands. These are kind of weak hands that they decided to play here. So I'm always looking at the chip stacks, my chip stacks versus my opponent's chip stacks. And usually you don't want players with a lot of chips sitting on your left who are also very aggressive players. But you also want to be aware of players that are short on chips. So, yeah, that was interesting there. Petey trying to hit his flush and getting eliminated pretty quickly. And I try to get involved in situations where I feel like I at least have a statistical edge. And if I get drawn out on, then so be it. And QQ had played the previous hand really aggressively, so again, that's not the kind of player I love to have acting immediately after me. So I'll just be careful. King 7, first to act. I'm going to put in a min raise here. And a lot of times a min raise is just as effective as a larger raise. But if you get re-raised, then it's easier for you to fold your hand and cut your losses. Okay. All right. So I think QQ has something here, probably has me beat. I mean, I'm assuming I'm up against a king or a 10. Could have also been a straight draw on the flop, but there's not very many hands that I can actually beat. And that raise made it pretty clear, or that bet made it pretty clear that I didn't have a winning hand, and it's just too risky for me to try to raise there. However, now I have a suited ace on the button. So I'll put out a little standard raise and take it down. Jack deuce, it's a hand that doesn't even have a nickname, so why should I play that? All right, looks like Mackie is back. Just in time to play his small blind. He says his laptop overheated. New player to the table, Music Era. I've got a real marginal hand here, but I'm already in on the small blind. I'm going to see if I can see a cheap flop, and I can. But I'm gonna check it here and maybe bet the turn if nobody bets. Okay, so Musicara, I don't have a read on this player. I'm gonna fold. I have 9 high. It's not worth it. Ace 10 on the button. That's good for a standard raise. And 5-6 queen is not a flop that is going to help a lot of people to call a raise. So I'll make a bet. Slowly grow my chip stack. I'm going to take this opportunity to throw some fish around the table. All right, ace queen. On a 5-handed table, this is good for a raise from any position. Now, if somebody's already raised in front of you, then you might want to play it differently. But I'm happy to take that one down without a flop. So Mackie here is on the low stack on this table. The blinds have just gone up. So Mackie, if he realizes this, might start playing aggressively and can push all in at any point in time. So I'm not going to call him if he does go all in like he is right now, unless I'm either willing to gamble and lose that amount, or when I really think I do have the best hand. And I'm going to actually fold this one just because Musicara already called. And against 2 opponents, I probably did not have the best hand. But actually, I would have hit 2 pair. But I think going into that flop, I was behind. And people might say, oh, Zen, I didn't realize that you bluff so much. But I actually don't. I actually don't bluff very much at all. What I do is I try to buy small pots. I try to steal small pots. And in my mind, that's different than bluffing, because bluffing is usually when you have a big pot, it's growing, people are really contesting it, there's bets, there's raises, and you're trying to really convince people that you have a specific strong hand. And you're trying to get them to fold a decent hand or maybe another strong hand. So when you're bluffing, the risk is high, but the reward is also high. And most of what I'm doing, if I and playing my position heavily, I'm trying to risk a small amount of my chips to win hands. And that's successful mostly because my opponent doesn't have anything. And they just don't care enough about the particular pot to really contest it. Okay, so QQ is now pushing all in here. I cannot reasonably call that. But I wish I knew what that hand was. Okay, I've got the fork. The 4 king. I'm in the small blinds. And I think I'm going to try to call here and then just maybe lead out on a flop. But he pushes all in. So again, this is the kind of player that I have to be careful about, because I'm often faced with an all or nothing bet sizing. And that might make my decisions easier, but I don't want to give away too many chips pre-flop. So I also haven't seen very many hands shown from QQ. So I've fallen down in the standings here. Oh, and here we have I'm down to 8th now, but I still have, I don't know, about 15, 17 big blinds or something like that. So I have some room to maneuver. And QQ had checked back so quickly on that flop, I felt it was a safe turn bet for me. But here, don't like my position, don't like my cards. Okay, 4 high. I cannot call this. My cards add up to 6. And that means fold. Unless you have pocket 3s. And I'm going to fold the Jack 4 here. Just didn't feel right. King Queen, I'm going to put in a min raise here. And we have 2 of the top 3 chip stacks on this table. And I've obviously flopped a good hand here. I'm going to keep betting. But I'm betting it small here. He pushes all in. I don't know if he saw weakness in my bet or whatever, but I kind of have to call here. And I am ahead. And so I take out Mackie Boy. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be ahead there, but it doesn't hurt me that much to call. I feel like my hand is too good to fold. And if I do lose, I'm still in the game. I still have a decent amount of chips. So I wasn't too concerned about that. And I kind of put out a small bet there sort of to induce a bluff, to kind of make my hand maybe look a little bit weak. Because against that chip stack, I was willing to put in all the chips pretty much no matter what happened on that flop. I mean, no matter what happened with the betting. He wasn't able to convince me that he had my hand crushed. He just didn't have enough chips to do that. All right, I'm going to get out of the way here. I'm just going to be really selective about what I call against a pre-flop all in like that. And I'm just going to run away scared on this hand. But I do have position on this hand, and once again I have an ace, so that's good. And I'll take it down. Good time for a min raise here. Wow. So Gorgeous is just putting on max pressure here, which I can't imagine what Gorgeous could. Wow, I would have had quads. Look at that. That is ridiculous. So I can't imagine what Gorgeous would play that way, where it makes sense to play in that way. Because even if Gorgeous had pocket aces, I'm not calling unless I have pocket kings or something like that. And that's just very unlikely. But turns out I could have made a really terrible call there and hit quads, and that would have been hilarious. Okay. So let's see if I can win this with a small bet, and I can. Let's see. You know, I'm concerned about QQ, but I got to keep putting on the pressure. I have, and I regret it. So I don't know if my bet sizing is an issue here, or if QQ really has a hand worth playing for the full stack. But I'm being punished for trying to play against QQ aggressively. All right, I've got an ace. My position isn't great. I'll put out a slightly bigger than minimum raise, and I'll take it down. Another ace on the big blind. And interestingly, big blind has now turned into having the best position on the table, but I can't call an all in, and I wish I knew what Gorgeous had. Because that kind of pre-flop play there is starting to become a pattern. And QQ raising me is a pattern as well, so I'm just getting away from this hand as well. And Queen 2, I'm going to fold this one. And that would have been pretty scary board for Queen 2, so it's probably just as well. All right, I've got 6-5. I'm going to mix it up and raise here. This player, Exorcist Roger, is apparently not at the computer right now. So that means that player will automatically fold if there's a bet that needs to be called. So that can be used to your advantage. All right, now QQ is doing this again, and even though I have King Jack, I can't call. I'm not going to risk virtually all of my chips on that situation. So that's definitely a tough player to play against, because I don't want to make a bad call pretty much ever. But now QQ is doing this fast checking again. And once again, that is an indicator of real weakness. So I'm gonna keep doing that. It seems like I'm either up against these all-in pre-flop raises, or there's no resistance at all. So that's really kind of interesting. And yikes. Yikes, this has happened so much. I have to call this. I've got ace queen. All right, no jack. No jack. Please, no jack. No jack. All right, I took out my nemesis. And that's huge. That is huge because now I am chip leader. You'll notice that what I did is I played very carefully against QQ and only bet on the flop and on the turn when I really felt like I was not getting any bet called at all. But there were enough of those pre-flop pushes that I started to feel like ace-queen is good enough to win most of the time against that kind of pattern. And it turns out I was right, and now I'm chip leader. So that's awesome. So Lupin and Levis or Levi's have come into the table. I've got pocket aces here. And it gets folded to me. Okay. So Lupin is definitely on the short stack on this table. Only has about 5 big blinds. And I'm expecting a lot of this, or I'm expecting this to happen soon. Because when you're down to 5 big blinds, you just can't afford to keep waiting. So I like that I have position on that player because I can make the decision after he or she decides to go all in. Okay, Jack 10 on the button. And I get one caller. And, you know, I could have easily had an ace when I raised pre-flop, so I'm going to bet at this ace-high flop. And that worked. So I don't know if Exorcist Roger was concerned that I really had an ace, but probably didn't have much to call my bet. So Gorgeous limps in and then leads out on that flop and wins. So may have had an ace there. I've got the deuces. I'm going to just call with the intention of calling a medium-sized raise. Or maybe Lupin's all in. Okay, so Lupin just checked the option. Probably doesn't have an ace. And I'm just going to try to put Lupin all in and hope that Lupin folds. So Lupin has a random hand. Lupin was on the big blind and checked. So I just decided to just say, hey, Lupin, if you got anything at all, you got to play for your whole stack. And you probably don't have much. Okay, so now I've got tens. Lupin's called. I'm just going to try to bully Lupin into going all in here. Because if Lupin doesn't call, you're really low on chips now. All right, so it's a race. It's a 50-50. And I ended up winning that. So that's a coin flip. If you have one player with a pocket pair and another player with 2 cards higher that are unpaired, in other words, 2 overcards, that's often referred to as a coin flip. Because generally the odds are about 50-50. But if I lose that 50-50, it's not much since I decided to get involved with the shortest stack at the table. So it's good to always keep that in mind. Queen 3, I'm just going to fold this one, wait for a better spot. And now Gorgeous bets 3/4 of his or her stack pre-flops. That's kind of interesting. Like why do that? Why bet 3/4 of your stack and keep 1,000 back? Does that indicate a stronger than normal hand? Or what? could mean different things. And I'll let Levi's take a hand off of me. Let's see, King 4. I'll put out a minimum raise here. Hope I don't get raised. Okay, good. You'll notice that if I don't have a really strong hand, I tend to get involved if nobody else has already called or bet, or if I have a strong hand, or if I have good position. And of course, combinations of those things make for even better situations. Three, 4. I'm going to fold. Taking a quick look over at the standings here. I'm still chip leader, and there are 12 players left. So there are 3 tables. And I actually am doing quite well in chips. Got the 6-3, and I'm offered a free flop, so I'm going to take it. I hit 2 pair. Not a great 2 pair, of course. And Levis just bets out at it. So I'm going to call 1 bet here and just see what he does on the turn. Of course, it's not a great turn, but he's putting out a tiny bet here. The problem is the turn fills a flush. If he has a 6, he probably has a winning hand. So I have a 3 kicker. Actually, with the ace out there, my kicker didn't even play. The question is if he would play that hand the same way if he had a 10. I got 5-3, and I'm just going to fold this. I could have seen a cheap flop there, but with the blinds going up, I'm gonna fold a lot of hands. And I didn't have good position. And now Levi's is once again putting out small bets on flops that probably don't help his opponents, because that was another paired flop with 2 queens. So I'm starting to figure out this Levi's player a little bit. And he seems to be pretty strategic and a little bit deceptive about his hand strength. We got ace-5 here. And I'll take it down. Jack-10, I will check my option. And I flop nothing. So now he's again putting out a small bet. He's putting out these min bets. And he's doing this on, it seems, the majority of flops that he plays. So I bet that if it checks to Levi's on this paired flop, that he's going to make a small bet at it. I just feel like that's exactly what he does. And I'm going to actually bluff here. So I'm going to put out a raise, because I just don't think that he has much. And it worked. Okay, so I'm starting to figure him out. It's really hard for him to have a big hand on the 7-7-9 flop. So hopefully, by check raising him there with, what did I have? 3 high. Hopefully that has kind of sent him a little bit of a message to say, hey, Either I had a big hand there and maybe I overplayed it, or maybe I'm kind of onto you. And I'm not going to let you just push me around with these little bets anymore. At the same time, I'm noticing that Exorcist Roger plays tightly. So most of the time that I've put in a raise, that player folds pre-flop. So once again, I have 3 high, and Levi's just calls. And I'm going to see if his trick works on him. And my min bet works on him. All right, so now Exorcist Roger just shoves all the chips in. And that just really feels like he's overplaying that hand. Whatever that hand happens to be, even if it's pocket aces, I don't feel like that is a good way to play that hand. All right, so this is going to be interesting because if Levi's gets called here, we're going to be able to see what kinds of hands he's going to push here with. All right, so jacks versus nines. So Levi's is a pretty solid player. Of course, he's going to lose here to a flop set of nines. That's pretty brutal. Jack 2, let's put out a min raise. And hope that everybody folds. Okay, there's an ace out there. I'm going to try the same bet here and see if I can scare him off this hand. If I get raised, I fold, obviously. But it worked. So a lot of times people will assume that you have an ace if you raise pre-flop and then you bet again when an ace comes out on the flop. And so now I have the king high flush draw. It's been checked to me. And I'm going to bet more than half the pot and take it down. So turns out that I'm in contention for chip leader now with 100M, who is one of the few people who has already won a Cards in Space tournament. All right, I'm going to limp in here, see if I get a free flop, or a cheap one rather. And I got raised, so it's another 800 for me to call. I don't like my position. So that's a good place to fold. I'll also fold the 8 high. And now we have Musicara, who had called pre-flop, bets into this flop, gets raised, and then folds. So that's kind of interesting. You see, Exorcist Roger on that last hand was on the big blind and checked to see a free flop, and then just shoved all the chips in on that flop. So that's why you don't want to let the big blind in to see a free flop, because you don't know if they're going to hit two pair or something, because that's probably what happened there. If Roger had a big starting hand, then there would have been a raise pre-flop. So that flop really helped that player's hand. You can be almost certain of that. All right, I flopped nothing. I'm going to just check this one. And I'll let Musicara take it down. It was a good position bet. Hard to play back against that with just queen high. And now I have sevens. I'm not quite sure how to play this. I think a raise is in order, though. I'm just very wary about what's going on right now because the blinds are now 300, 600. And I don't really want to get in a situation where I am forced to call all in with just pocket sevens. There's so many hands that have me crushed. I don't even want to see ace, jack, or something. In that case, it would have been a coin flip, but I am not willing to play for a coin flip. I want to know that I've got the better of it going in. All right, he goes all in here, and his bet is so small, just 560 compared to 4,200 in the pot. I have to call even though I have nothing. And he has been crushed, but making the call there, I think, is the only real play you can make there. I mean, you're getting like 10 to 1 odds when you look at the bet that you have to call compared to what's already in the pot. It's like 10 to 1. So that was unfortunate. I've dropped down a fair amount of chips now, but I'm still in second place. And it looks like Roger's going to get busted on this hand. And I wasn't fully paying attention while I was talking about that last hand. But clearly Musicara is somebody that I need to be wary of, especially since Musicara is now chip leader in the game. And seated to my left. So I tried to sneak in here and see a cheap flop, but it didn't work out. And I'm going to fold. And now I'm just sitting right in the middle of the chip stacks. And I want to be at the top of the chip stacks. But I'm not going to be reckless in trying to get there. I am rarely reckless. And if I am, then it usually punishes me and makes it very clear that I've played badly. Okay, so I'm actually going to play this kind of slow. I've got a pair of aces now. And Musicara makes a small bet. And I'm just going to call it. I'm not convinced that Musicara has an ace. Makes another bet. I'm just going to call it. And I'll check again. And yeah, it turns out Musicara just had a flush draw. And had Musicara bet more, I would have folded. Okay, so there's kings. And I'm going to raise. There's actually an all-in for less than the big blind from Gorgeous. But this is a safe-looking flop. And this is where I put on pressure. Yeah, I'm basically committing myself to my hand if I need to. Okay, good. So kings versus threes. And Gorgeous is knocked out. That's great. And I'll be in contention for chip lead spot. All right, so now we're at the final table. We're down to the final 5 players out of the 40 that started. All right, so we have an all in here. Ace 10 and Brady calling with the Queen 10. So Brady getting rewarded for calling with the lesser hand. 5-9, I'm going to fold. And Musicara seems to be playing position strongly. In other words, that was a pretty safe looking flop when two players check to you to put out a bet like that, especially when the board is paired like that, the two tens. So I think Musicara is a strategic player that I need to be careful playing against. All right. 8-2 on the big blind. And 100M is making a crazy bet here that I will almost never call unless I have aces or kings or queens, or I have a really strong feeling about this player not always having a strong hand. All right, so we got all in and then two calls. So we're going to the side pot. Brady puts out a small bet, gets called. Another small bet on the turn. And Maple Leaf had good timing there with just like two and a half big blinds, I think. Good timing to hit ace king right before you have to pay the big blind. My hand is not very good, but I feel like if I call here, I can see cheap flop in position. And look at this. Musicara tries to win a decent pot cheaply. Problem is, I can't really play back because I don't know what Maple Leaf or Brad are going to do. But since they had already checked, I definitely could have considered putting in a raise there because I don't think Musicara needed to have much of a hand. But I really didn't have anything myself, so it's all things that get factored into your decisions. Musicara now just makes a call pre-flop. So I want to know what kind of hands that indicates. So rocket ships are now bombarding us. And it has to come from 100M because he's the only player that has won one of these games already that's at the table. So he has the rocket bomb available to throw around the table. So I'm sitting in second place for chips. And I think that, so 100M is doing this again. And I would have hit 3 tens, but I think that he's hitting strong starting hands, but he's just betting way too much. He could make more chips if he bet less because you don't want everybody to fold on every hand, even if you have a good hand, even if you have ace king or something like that. You want to give yourself the possibility of winning a bigger pot, and sometimes you have to see a flop. You have to bet less, let more than 0 people into the pot. All right, we have a huge pot here. And wow. So top pair with weak kicker is good enough for Maple Leaf to become the chip leader. And now Musicara is really down on chips. And I like that situation So Musicara is one of the players that I am most concerned about playing against. Now, this sucks. I hate this, but I pretty much have to call with 10 high. Oh, and I hit a 10. Ooh, I need to dodge a straight or a king. Okay, good. Wow. So I tried to win a pot there by making my bet, but the blinds are so high that if somebody who's kind of short stacked makes a move like Brady did, then I'm almost forced to call because the odds are so good. When you look at the chips that are out there, the chips I have to call, and here's another kind of similar situation, but I actually have ace high now. So I have to hit an ace or a 10. Ace or a 10. Come on, ace or 10. Okay, no good. So that hurt. We're definitely at a stage where the blinds are really putting on a lot of pressure. And I have fallen down to third place in chips. And 100M is now making a reasonable bet, which actually makes my decisions quite a bit more difficult. So good job, 100M. All right, Musicara is now putting on pressure. And that's a good place to put it. Wow, so King Jack, 8 hits a jack. Ooh, the 8 comes on the turn. So Musicara is now out, and we're down to 3 players. So I'm definitely the short stack now. I've got ace 5. Oh, what do I do? I put out a min raise. I tell you what, I put out a min raise. I still have enough chips to fold if I have to. But it's too risky for me to just push in all my chips right there. And actually, it worked. Like I won the pot uncontested. Now I got king 6. And I'm on the big blind. And it gets folded to me. A lot of times putting pressure on players makes them play a lot more carefully against you. So they'll actually fold when ordinarily they may call a raise. But now I'm hitting a couple of junk hands, so I'm just going to fold. And it looks like nobody wants this pot. And I wish I were still in there with my 3. But I never would have, probably would not have made it far into that hand. All right, 8-7. I will take a free flop. And I have nothing, but we'll try a min bet here. Min bet is only a 1/10 of my stack and is going to work most of the time, I believe. All right, king queen. Definitely good for a raise from the button. The question is how much? And I'm just going to put in a min raise. Uh-oh, he's going to go all in because he said good game. So 1,600. Oh, what do I do? I fold. I gotta survive. Survival is more important than anything. All right, so Maple Leaf seems to be giving me some free hands here by folding the small blinds, and I'm okay with that. 100M is the player that I'm more concerned about, even though he has less chips than Maple Leaf. I've got king 8. King 8 is, the blinds have just gone up, and king 8 is better than the average hand. Actually, had I realized that the blinds had just gone up, I would have just shoved all in there. But it worked anyways, because I got the folds that I wanted. Okay, now Maple Leaf is raising. Now that's a little out of the ordinary. So that's a better indicator that Maple Leaf has a good hand there. So I'm not playing. I've got just king high here, but I've got like, what, 5 big blinds maybe? So I'm going to push all in here and hope to get a fold. Please fold. Ah! Come on, king or 3. King or 3. King or 3, please. I hit a 3! Yes! That's ridiculously lucky right there. So I had, yeah, that was, I did not really deserve to win that. Let's look at the history. Yeah, so ace 10. Yeah, I mean, I'm basically banking on the fact that he didn't have a hand strong enough to call. And he may have folded a hand that's not much weaker than ace 10. He may have folded ace 8 or something like that. So that was quite a hand there. All right, so Roger's asking me to share jacks. Okay. Actually, who's in the room? Oh wow, yeah, we have some spectators. Look at that. So on that hand, when I had king 3 on the river, before the river was dealt, I had 6 outs, meaning I had 6 cards that could improve my hand enough to win. That would be the 3 kings and the 3 threes. So that's 6 outs total. And what you do is you multiply the number of outs by 2, and that's your percentage chance of hitting your hand per card. So I had a 12% chance for winning that hand on the river. So that's just how lucky I was. (7-4) Independence Day. It's a fun holiday. It's a bad hand to play. King 6 on the button, though, is good for a min raise. And hope everybody folds. Great. (4-8) cannot call. The all-in of 100 miles. King Jack of diamonds. I'm going to put on max pressure here, just kind of to mix it up. And he doesn't have a lot of chips to maneuver, so if I put in a small raise, I'm going to have to call the all-in anyways. If I put on max pressure, it's more likely he's going to fold a hand that might otherwise beat me, so that's why I decided to push there. Since he's now on the small stack, I can use that against him. And funny, I actually tried to check there, and I think I didn't click. So then I bet, and then I got raised. So my initial instinct was the right one there. All right, and once again, I got a walk. I got folded to with 2-5 from Maple Leaf. So that's super good for me. And I would have hit a full house on this hand, but oh well. Once again, Independence Day, I fold. I feel like 100M is going to go all in on one of these hands. So I'm wary of that. Oh, look at this. I would have hit quads. So part of the reason that I've done so well in this game is that I've been hitting hands. Of course, I didn't play that hand, so I didn't actually get that hand. But For example, when I hit that 3 on the river, that it really helps. Sometimes that makes all the differences when you get lucky. So, woo, I have to fold this because I have to give Maple Leaf credit for a better hand than I have, since she plays so tight. So I fold the Queen 10. Oh, actually, we had the same hand. Look at that. But suited would not have done me any favors. Yeah, look at that. Hits the 10 on the river. So now we're heads up. So if I happen to win this, I will give Maple Leaf the rocket ship medal and bomb, since I can do that, and I think that's fair. But I'm really happy to have made it to the last 2 players. So now I have to figure out how to play against Maple Leaf. I will say good luck. All right, I just don't feel like contesting this pot. She makes a bet. She had called pre-flop. She could very well have an ace or at least a queen. And I'm just deciding that she is not the type of player to bluff hardly ever. So I'm going to try to use that to my advantage. And hopefully I can win some small pots. And of course, big pots. 4-5, free flop. Sounds good. I need a 6 for a straight. And you know, I just think that she just doesn't have anything. And I don't think that my small bet sizes are coming across in any suspicious way. So I'm going to continue to use those because they minimize my risk. Okay, once again, I'm going to try a small bet. Okay, and Maple Leaf calls. And now I have a flush draw, and she bets 4,000. This is really difficult. I'm just going to call here. Oh, that's a good game. Good game. She hit the straight on the turn. Wow. Wow, look at that. I never would have guessed. Wow. So I won. I won the rocket ship. And I think that the moral of the story here, the thing that I noticed most about this game was bet sizing. And that's something that's kind of a trend with Triplejack, is that oftentimes you're faced with bets that are too small or way too big. And the bets that are kind of in the middle that mean something, that's where the more difficult and more interesting decisions come up. So anyway, that was a really fun, really exciting game. And it looks like it took about an hour and 10 minutes or so. And out of 40 players, I came first place. And that's great. And you know, really a lot of the success I kind of owe to hitting that 3 on the river. And I needed 1 of 6 cards to hit. And I had 5 cards. I had everything to hit a king or a 3 to come out with a winning hand. And it just so happened that 3 came on the river. It could have easily come on the flop. But I'm happy about the way it went. I'm happy the way that I played. I'm happy about that. So anyway, that's it for this game. Thanks for watching. Check out triplejack.com if you don't already play there. It's super fun, great community, and it's always changing, and I'll be adding more features to it. So thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.